Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the final chicane with me, Kristen Boylan. Welcome back, everyone. If you've been here before, thank you for coming back again for this week's race review. It is the fifth race of the season, and it was an exciting race from start to finish. It was the first sprint race of the season in the new sprint format, which was interesting. It was an exciting race, sprint race, exciting qualifying, a good weekend overall for excitingness, not for some other reasons. But yeah, we have a lot to talk about today. But first, as always, we are going to get into the riddle of the week. Okay, here it is. Alongside the best, I faced each test as we rode with Ferrari, a friendly contest. 11 victories, my wins deserved, and fourth with the most races served. In stock racing, I found a thrill. I'm incredibly achieved and from Brazil. Who am I? So who is that? I've actually heard his name being mentioned more often than usual this weekend. I don't know if that's just because I have him in my head because he's the Red Lancer, or there is a bit of significance, I guess, with China, maybe. But yeah, see if you know who it is. If you know who it is, comment below or on my TikTok or Instagram, wherever you want. Okay, let's get into this weekend then. The Chinese Grand Prix, one that a lot of people were looking forward to. Obviously, the first one since 2019 and an exciting one. It always is. And it was this race as well. As I said, we have a lot to talk about. First of all, I just saw like 2 seconds ago that Daniel has got a three-place grid penalty for Miami. So I don't know if you have seen that, but basically Daniel got this because he overtook Hulkenberg. After his crash with Stroll, Daniel overtook Hulk because basically he felt like Hulk needed to give that position back because he was ahead of it was under a yellow flag and he was ahead of Hulk. But apparently Daniel wasn't allowed to overtake Hulk, and he did overtake Hulk without checking with his team first if he was allowed to. So in Miami, next race weekend, he has a three-place grid penalty, which is awful. Like he's had such a horrible weekend, and for something like that is so like on the border of if he was allowed to do that or not, is so awful for him. And I feel quite bad for Daniel actually after this weekend. But he's just gonna have to qualify higher. That will give him a bit of an oomph to qualify higher. Last time he had a three grid place penalty, I'm right in saying that the week that he had to do well from that, he did well in qualifying, right? I can't remember what race that was, in McLaren anyway. But yeah, poor Daniel. I'll talk about the penalties and stuff after, but that just popped up on my screen, so I had to mention that. It's obviously a sprint race weekend in Miami next as well, so he has two opportunities to score points. Hopefully he can do a bit of a better weekend. But yeah, the Chinese Grand Prix weekend, Zhou Guanyu's home race, the support Joe had this weekend, was so nice to see. All of the Joe cutouts, and obviously sometimes the Joe support goes a bit unnoticed despite him having a huge, huge fan base. The entirety of China motorsport fans are behind Joe. And I think he did do them proud this weekend. I know he didn't score points, but in the sprint, especially in qualifying, yeah, I'd say he should be proud. And he was incredibly emotional as well. If you missed it after the end of the race, he was crying on the floor in front of his fans because he was just so overwhelmed. Because even Formula One hasn't always been a huge thing in China. So for him to see all of that support that he used to be part of must have been a very special moment for Joe. He also had a nice helmet. He actually made a funny comment. He was like, "Oh, I didn't want to go for the casual red dragon sort of helmet because he was sort of thinking that other people would do that." And then Bottas and George both sort of ended up going along those lines. Joe obviously had a really nice helmet this weekend. Alex's panda helmet. Let's talk about that for a second. One of the best helmets ever that I've seen in Formula One because I just love animals and I like how he just looked like a panda driving the car. The best of the year, I don't know. I'd give the best of the year so far to Joe's helmet for Bottas when he put Bottas's head on his helmet. What race was that for? I can't remember now for some reason. Before we get into race talk, what else happened? this week. Alonso signed a contract for Aston Martin for 2025 and beyond. Whatever you think beyond is, I'll be interesting to hear. He obviously has some sort of belief in Aston Martin and he is out driving that car, or maybe he's driving it to its potential. He's out driving his teammate though in it. So yeah, there was a bit of chit chatter, whatever the word is, about Alonso going to Red Bull, but that's all put to bed now. He is with Aston Martin for now. Things can change. I don't know what the terms in his contract is. And he did say that he thinks it's going to be his last contract in Formula One in the press conference on Thursday. So who knows? He also retired before and came back. So, take everything he says with a pinch of salt. Also, speaking of Alonso and Taylor Swift released an album. I haven't actually listened to it yet, but I do know the one line that everyone's talking about. Because obviously there were like these funny rumors that Taylor Swift and Fernando Alonso were dating, and Fernando Alonso was playing up to them a little, or Aston Martin, social media, in a funny way before she was dating someone else. And Taylor's new album has the line, "I'm an Aston Martin that you steered straight into the ditch." So I think she could have picked any car. She picked Aston Martin. I mean, not that weird that she picked Aston Martin, but I think it's a acknowledgement of it and I respect it very much. Other team talk, I guess Carlos Helmut Marko has been saying stuff as always. He always is about Carlos, and he said that Carlos seems to have like quite a good deal in front of him, a multi-year, obviously high-paid contract with Audi being presented to him. Carlos hasn't signed anything or accepted anything or even talked about anything, but the Audi rumors are gaining a bit more momentum now. They had a bit of momentum when he first left or was announced to be leaving Ferrari, but that's sort of coming back. The Mercedes seat though, still open. And I mean the Red Bull don't really seem to have any reason to be looking for a new second driver. But so who knows? Who knows what's gonna happen? What other news? Daniel Ricciardo got a new chassis for this weekend, and immediately it looks like, and I'm not going to say that it is because of the chassis, but the improvements have been, you can't mistake that there has been incredible improvements with Daniel this weekend. He bet Yuki and everything basically so far. He was quite a bit ahead, I think around 3/10 Yuki all weekend. So it would be interesting to see if the new chassis is something to do with that. Hopefully it didn't actually get damaged in that crash today. I wouldn't say so. It only looked like a bit of floor damage. Yeah, I really hope that that was the issue. So we can start getting some proper competitiveness between Daniel and Yuki. Not in an Alpine way or a Ferrari way. More in a nice, you don't know who's going to come out on top sort of way, if that makes sense. FP1. I didn't get up for FP1, so I don't have much to say on it. I was driving the next day and I need my sleep before I'm driving because I panic. A driving lesson, sorry. Even though I'm done all 12, I need a few more because I'm not great, to be honest. I had to push my test back. But yeah, so I did miss FP1 for good reason. That's probably the last FP1 I'll miss for now. Because I watch them. If I can watch them, I will watch them, I promise. All I know is that the grass set on fire, and I still don't know why. They said that it might be sparks that set them on fire. They said it might have been curb blocks or skid blocks, whatever the word they used was. And then they confirmed on Saturday that they actually don't know why the grass set on fire. So why did we figure that one out? Did I miss why the grass has been setting on fire? I respect the grass. Quali though, because I did watch quali. Quali was a very mixed one, sprint quali, that is, of course. It used to be called sprint shootout, but now it's back to sprint quali. Little improvements on the mediums. The mediums were so mixed this weekend. Like some people started on the mediums, had no grip, changed to new mediums and had so much grip. So used mediums were not great this weekend. The biggest surprises from SQ1, Yuki, P19. A bit over 5/10 off Daniel. I don't know what happened with Yuki. I really don't. I didn't see much. I think he just said that he didn't put the lap together and he knew it. He knew that it wasn't a good lap, which is always more encouraging than not knowing where you went wrong at all. So P19, yeah, I don't know what happened there. Alpines were a 10th off each other. Once again, they're quite consistent with each other, but just they're not up there. Although Esteban has been that step ahead, in my opinion, this season. Pierre is getting there, but it's obviously just not enough for them to be, it's the car, obviously. The car needs some serious improvements, and hopefully they do have some more upgrades coming. I think they had an upgrade this weekend as well. And I think maybe just Esteban might have had that upgrade. And Esteban did have a good weekend, or a good race at least. But yeah, the Williams are about 6 tenths off each other again. 6 tenths, Logan 6 tenths off Alex, quite a big margin, unfortunately for Logan. I guess Logan just didn't put the lap together as much as he needed to as well. They both did say that they did everything that they could during those laps. Williams recognized that they did that as well. So the Williams car as well, similar to Alpine, it's just not in that place that it needs to be right now. And then the grass set on fire again because of the skid blocks. That's what they said. They said because of the skid blocks. I think that's what I heard anyway. I don't really know what that is, to be honest. I just saw grass on fire. So twice in one day. I've never seen grass set on fire in a race before. There was also a little Daniel Carlos incident during sprint quali. Daniel was going to do his fast lap. Carlos was on an out lap, and Carlos overtook Daniel right as Daniel was passing the starting line to start his fast lap. And Daniel wasn't happy about that. There was no investigation or anything. I honestly probably thought that would maybe be an investigation for impeding, but obviously there would be, I guess. Red Bull or Racing Bulls didn't report it potentially, and maybe it wouldn't have been even if they did, but obviously wasn't a big deal. Daniel got into SQ2 anyway, and then the rain came and no one could make any improvements. So a few of the drivers were out because their first lap wasn't fast enough. You know who wasn't out though? Zhou Guanyu, incredible. He had an incredible SQ3 or SQ2 to get into SQ3 and then SQ3. Very impressive from Zhou. I was sitting there in awe that he was able to do that in front of his family, in front of his home crowd. He's the one that I just wanted to do so well. Bottas too. Incredible weekend for Sauber at the start of the weekend, obviously. They were top form for the sprint and the sprint quali. Charles went into the barrier, which wasn't ideal, but he got it going again. He was fine in the end, thank God. Max was going off, Perez, Alonso, times deleted. Perez, what I was saying is Perez was P1 at some point and his pace was there. Another good weekend for Perez. Alonso P1 at some point as well. No idea who was taking that pole position. Max, Joe, and Hamilton all getting their times deleted. I thought it was over for Max when he got his time deleted. Of course not. I should never think that. It's never over for Max. He always comes back. And then Lando went pole, and then Lando got his track time deleted, his lap time deleted, and then he got his lap time reinstated. The mix of emotions there. It's like, oh, another Max pole. No, Lando pole. No, Lando P10. No, Lando pole. Imagine like Lando's family and the hardcore Lando fans at that time would have probably passed away. But Lando pole, extremely impressive. Piastri was struggling a little this weekend. McLaren weren't expected to do well this weekend at all. I don't know how that happened, to be honest. Was Bottas P8, maybe? As again, so impressive from Seba. That led on to the sprint. My first note I took on the sprint is Daniel, great start down the inside of Russell. I remember that now. I don't think he made the move stick, but he was sort of like showing us what he could do in a faster car. It was a good move. He didn't make it stick though. Russell was also on softs, so Russell obviously had that pace advantage on the softs and also in a faster car, even though the Mercedes wasn't looking great this weekend either. I didn't really hear too much of George all weekend, to be honest. Lando, oh, it was painful to watch. While he went from P1 to P7 maybe in one corner. There's no incident or anything. He just went off with him and Lewis. Sorry if I didn't talk about Lewis. Lewis, extremely impressive in sprint quali as well, obviously. But yeah, Russell and Bottas were fighting each other actually, which I just love. I love to see the Sauber fighting a Mercedes. And Bottas was doing well, but obviously, once again, you just can't. The Sauber doesn't have the pace. You just can't really hold on. But it was always fun seeing those sort of battles. And then Mercedes started struggling and the train was forming behind them. No one could really get out of that train. McLaren started struggling. Both Lando and Piastri were sort of looking like they were struggling a bit during the sprint. There were some good overtakes. Daniel had a good overtake on Bottas down the inside. I think he tried like twice. He made it stick the second time. Wasn't shown on TV. Never shown on TV. Stroll was lacking pace the entire weekend, especially in the sprint quali and the sprint. Not really sure how there is such a big difference between Stroll and Alonso. And I mean such a big difference because Alonso right now is a front marker and Stroll is midfield, borderline back marker at some point. So hopefully Stroll can figure out what's going on there. Maybe he too needs a new chassis. Williams, once again, struggling, no improvement in the sprint. And Pierre, we'll give it to Alpine. Pierre made his first overtake, apparently. I saw that rumor going around that he hadn't made any overtakes, so sorry if that's not true. But he made one and it was shown on TV, so well done, Pierre. Yeah, I was looking at Pierre's timing actually throughout the sprint. He was like 5 tenths up on Yuki, who I think was either behind or in front of him at some point. Alonso, Carlos, Charles, strong races. They couldn't really get much more out of their cars. Carlos had a really good move on Alonso, actually. Quite a nice one to watch. They were fighting each other a bit, though the Ferraris fighting each other. I nearly forgot about that. Oh my God. If you didn't see the onboards after, it sort of looked like Charles was putting his thumbs up to Carlos. And I think the tweet that I saw with it on it was like, oh, like, look how cute it is that they made up on their thumbs up. But I would have took that as sarcastic because Charles was like sort of like a putting his thumbs up, but like moving it forward and back like a sarcastic sort of one. That's just how I would take it. Not that I disagree or anything, but obviously he wasn't happy, but they're both mature drivers. They both have had their share of maybe nasty sort of moves. Not nasty, but just like moves that you probably shouldn't be doing on your teammate. They weren't really happy, or Charles wasn't really happy with Carlos after that. I don't think Carlos really saw a problem with anything. They are racing at the end of the day. Like it wouldn't have been a problem if it wasn't his teammate. So is it actually a problem, if that makes sense? Daniel was so close to getting Magnussen as well. Magnussen was fighting quite hard. I was looking at it a bit like I don't even know if you're allowed to do that, but I'm guessing you are because nothing was done about it. Wasn't showed on TV either. He was so close. Bottas was actually so close to passing Daniel as well at the end of the sprint, but they all held position. Good sprint from Daniel though. And then Ocon getting Stroll right at the end as well was very impressive from Esteban. A lot of people are underrating Esteban this year. A lot of people think he needs to be gone. I don't think that at all. And I think you're probably just not paying enough attention to his season. I find that a lot. There's people who are more vocal about how a driver should be gone, knows actually nothing about how their season is going, and is just like looking at the numbers and not actually, because you can't just look at the numbers in Formula One. Oh yes, Alonso got a puncture in the sprint from some harsh fighting. I think it was his move with Carlos that earned him a penalty. Am I right saying that? Because I didn't write that down for some reason. But he got a penalty. He got like he DNF'd from the sprint, but also he got a penalty added time on, so that didn't make a difference. But he also got some penalty points. That could potentially make a difference. I don't know how much he has right now, if any. But because remember when Pierre was on quite high penalty points and it was like one more and he would miss a race. So you have to be careful. Then qualifying, Orbi seemed to have a bit of problems in qualifying. Yuki was saying that his DRS wasn't working at the start and they fixed that, but Yuki still didn't have a good qualifying and Daniel had brake issues, but he went back to the pits and they fixed that as well. Logan spun, brought out a yellow flag. Quite a big spin actually, but Yuki qualified P19 again, but this time he doesn't know how it was P19 because he didn't think he messed up. He didn't think that he just didn't put the lap together. Sort of similar to what Daniel has been saying for the past few weeks, that like he doesn't know where it went wrong. Something just doesn't feel right with the car. And I saw a lot of tweets after that being like, oh, they've swapped Daniel and Yuki's car, which is the most insane thing ever. Because it's never been like a hush thing that Daniel's getting a new chassis. Daniel said as well earlier on this week that it was offered between him and Yuki didn't want it. I'd say it would be offered to Yuki first, since Yuki is having the better season, since Yuki was showing more potential. But Yuki didn't want it. Yuki didn't have a problem with his car before this weekend. And there's still like no problem with his car. They don't know. Yuki doesn't know. He wasn't too bad today, but compared to Daniel, his pace was lacking again in the actual Grand Prix today. Daniel made it through to Q2, which was nice for him. Would have been nicer if he got into Q3, obviously. Hamilton P18, he said he thought it was a bit of a setup problem. I just got the official notification on my phone for Daniel getting the 3-place grid penalty, and it just annoyed me all over again. Anyway, Hamilton P18, he said that he got the setup wrong. Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna assume that is what went wrong because Because I don't know, he didn't have a bad race today. I'll discuss that later. They seem to be not getting the setup right a lot recently, so that's something that they're going to need to work on. They're going to need to get right. Joe 0.048 I have written here from getting through, so that is actually devastating. I don't know who that was next to. Yuki was around 3/10 off Daniel. Perez P15 by the skin of his teeth. Is that the word? Is that the saying? Got through. That is so lucky because he had the pace, but he obviously didn't put the lap together. Him and Daniel were quite on the edge of that, but he got through, so it was fine. Bottas, superstar, P9 in Q1. Let's go, Bottas. Let's go. And then Q2, Carlos crashed. So that obviously affected a few drivers, not really, because there was still around 7 minutes left to go. Then there was some rumors that Carlos would get disqualified because there's a rule that if you stop in qualifying, you can't go again. But they're saying that since he got it going by himself, that it didn't count. But the problem was that there wasn't a specific time like mentioned that you have to stop. So some people were like, no, he went way over a minute. He has to be disqualified. Or some people were like, no, he was only this long, so he should get to keep going. He got to keep going. He didn't get disqualified. Make of that what you will. I'm not too sure. I don't think he should have got disqualified. Maybe he should have just started P15 then, but rules are rules, and I guess he didn't breach any if that's the way it happened. I guess it's same with Lando. Lando apparently broke track limits. Sorry for not talking about that earlier, actually, in sprint qualifying. But because it was basically Lando went off the final corner of the lap that he was doing, and that counted towards track limits for the lap that he was about to start. So they made the point that he didn't actually gain any advantage or anything from going off before starting that new lap, because that is why the rule is like that. So he ended up not getting his time deleted, which got him pole. So yeah, then Stroll, Ricciardo, Ocon, Albon, and Gasly were all out. Who wasn't out? Bottas, absolute icon. Let's go, Bottas. Q3, Hulk as well, on top of his game. Hulk is on top of his game recently. We'll talk about the race then, will we? Also, just quickly, congratulations all the European watchers for getting through these early times. I feel very bad for the Australians who are probably just starting. I'm not sure what the time difference is, but who are probably just starting their season of early race starts. So, and they have a lot more than us, so we can't really complain. But we made it. Now we have a late race start next week, like 9 p.m., 8 p.m. maybe, something like that. But yeah, the race, Alonso pushing right at the start. Love to see that. Some good moves. Lando also staying steady at the start. Daniel was eaten up at the start a bit. He had no grip on his tires, so he fell down a long way and ended up in front of Yuki. God, I was panicking. I was like, this is going to be the first race of the season all over again. They're either going to push each other off or there'll be team orders and there'll be angriness, because I did think Yuki had that bit more pace at the start. Maybe he had a better start. But Daniel did stay in front. They were in and out of DRS the entire sort of time until Yuki pitted. So it was fine in the end. And then they came together again. But they played it cool. They both did a good job staying out of each other's way this race. The pitting was interesting. I think Yuki was one of the first to pit actually, so he could undercut Daniel, and he did undercut Daniel quite successfully actually. Daniel stayed out quite late. I wasn't sure what they were doing, to be honest, because I thought maybe they were going to try for the one pit stop strategy, but he did box like too early for that to work anyway, even though he boxed later than everyone else. He boxed later than all of the front runners even. But it did turn out in his favor actually. Sauber didn't have a bad pit stop. We cheered. I have my Alfa Romeo hat that I got at Silverstone that I got signed by Joe. Joe, the first Formula One driver I ever met in my life. Maybe I'll keep this hat on. Actually, wait, no, actually Bottas was the first one I met because I went to Bottas first. Because Valtteri was sitting like closest on the table, so I actually talked to him first. And can I just say, Joe is the sweetest person in the entire world to me in real life. I was actually wearing a Daniel cap when I met Joe, and he complimented my hat of Daniel. So I actually talk about that whole experience in one of my other episodes if anyone is interested. Joe's so sweet to me as well. We didn't say a word because we were too shy, but we got this hat. Free hat, by the way. Joe actually signed my Silverstone hat as well. I have two signatures from Joe. Let's go. Bottas was holding out quite steady as well. Bottas had a good race until his unfortunate DNF. Joe did fall back though, unfortunately, at the start. He had one good move, but then he sort of was obviously on the wrong side and he just fell back completely, which was sort of upsetting. I just wanted to see Joe do well, and I'm proud of how he did this weekend, and I think he should be too. Haas and Alpine, there was like an investigation going on because they were getting in each other's way. The Alpine was sort of being pushed around. They were being a little bullied today on track. There was a few investigations going on for stuff like that, being pushed wide. I don't think anything came from the pushed wide allegations anyway. And yeah, then the pit stops happened. Obviously, Yuki, I was sort of focusing on Daniel and Yuki for this part because I wanted to focus in on like two drivers to give you more specific information. You can let me know who I'll focus in on next time. If any of you don't have like some of like the Sky Sports app so you can see timings and stuff, I'm happy to focus in on a driver for anyone. Yeah, Daniel was rapid after his pit stop. So he was behind Yuki. He was like P18 or something, and Yuki was like P16 after Daniel's pit stop. Daniel got Joe within the lap. Daniel got Joe straight away. He was 2 seconds behind Albon then. He made up the 2 seconds in one lap and got Albon in that same lap. And then he got Yuki like sort of immediately as well. So he was lapping over like a second faster than Yuki. His tires were like, what, 3 or 4 laps newer? But I don't think that was worth like over a second. And not just Yuki, Alex and Joe as well. Daniel was rapid after his pit stop and he was on the same, he was on the mediums. So I don't know how there was that's such a big difference there. But he was catching everyone. And then he was point 2 behind Lewis at one point, and then the yellow flag happened. Then Bottas's engine cut out on him. Unfortunately, very sad for Bottas. Very sad for Bottas. He deserved to have a good race. Daniel also deserved to have a good race. I really wanted to know if Daniel could have made that overtake on the Mercedes because Lewis, he's not an easy driver to overtake. I would have liked to see how that would have worked. But it was okay in the end. It wasn't okay for Daniel in the end. That was a complete lie. That was a lie. So the yellow flag did turn into a virtual safety car. It was like yellow flag, virtual safety car, then real safety car. Daniel didn't pit. Why didn't Daniel pit? I don't know. I don't think that was a good strategy. We couldn't tell in the end because Daniel never finished. But they might have been onto something. They might have been expecting another yellow flag. Unfortunately, the next time there was a yellow flag was for Daniel and Yuki. But so Yuki boxed and Daniel didn't. Daniel did have the pace on those tires. Maybe they were worried that if they switched it somehow he would lose the pace. Unfortunately, we never got to see. And Alonso didn't pit either. He stayed on his softs. He thought he could actually at one point get to the end of the race on the softs, but that didn't work out in the end either. I do think Alonso staying out did work for him though. So maybe I am being a bit critical saying that it wouldn't have worked for Daniel. I don't know. These people are trained in what they do and I'm not. And I like the Visa Cash App or B team, so I take back my criticism on them. I think they knew what they were doing. So yeah, virtual safety car, Daniel on mediums and Alonso on hard, and then everyone else was on the different tire. And then disaster struck just as the safety car was ending, right before the safety cars ended. So this wasn't racing time. That's one thing I didn't realize. This wasn't after the safety car had ended. So this was just on the cuffs of the safety car ending because Max had slowed down significantly going through the corner, which caused everyone else to have to slow down. Now everyone was looking ahead of them and saw that, okay, we need to slow down here, we need to brake. Daniel saw Oscar braked, Daniel braked, Stroll didn't brake, and he went into Daniel. He went completely under Daniel, like half his car, the front half of his car, like lifting Daniel's car into the air. And Daniel obviously crashed. He hit into Oscar as well and gave Oscar some damage. That was a disaster. That was so upsetting. And while that was happening, Yuki was also hit by Magnussen. Yuki was spun, I think, by Magnussen in a dumb move, a really dumb move, unfortunately. Obviously a mistake. Obviously neither Stroll or Magnussen are villains, but they did both make some dumb mistakes during that. And unfortunately, the Visa, Cash App, or Bs had to pay for it. They both got bullied right before the restart, basically, after the yellow flags. And the drama that emerged, though, after it, Daniel was raging. I don't know if you've watched the media afterwards, but Daniel was furious. He was at the start. He was like, you know what, Stroll, it was sort of a dumb move by Stroll. He should have been watching. But at the end of the day, things happen. And then one of the journalists told him what Stroll had said about him on the radio. I think Stroll had said something about idiots. I don't know if he was directly referring to Daniel. Maybe Daniel was told that he was referring to Daniel. I read it when Stroll said that. I read it as he was talking about Daniel. So Daniel was raging when he found out that Stroll was sort of like blaming him. I watched some of Stroll's post-race interviews and he did start by sort of blaming Daniel. Then obviously he was watching it back and was like more blaming everyone ahead of him for braking and not completely Daniel. But obviously Daniel, after having such a good weekend and being taken out, he was quite defensive about the fact that he was now being blamed, which does make sense to me that Daniel felt like that and he was furious. He was so angry at Stroll for trying to flip the narrative that it was his fault. And like I said, I don't think Stroll was trying to do that on purpose, but Daniel wasn't happy. I'll see if I can bring up any quotes from it. But yeah, Daniel was like, "Oh, I'm trying to be nice, but F this guy." I'm like, "Are you trying to be nice, Daniel? There's no need to try to be nice." And Daniel usually stays quite calm after these sort of things, so it was quite an experience to see him so angry. But every time he's angry, he seems to have a good race weekend. Like he was angry the race before Monza, and then he went out and drove his heart out in Monza. Yeah, before Angry Daniel came in, he was like, I got hit pretty big. It wasn't like a little love tap. It was frustrating. Then you can see he's sort of poking fun at it, but he's frustrated, you can tell. And then after he found out about the whole Stroll thing, he got angry. Then Piastri was also asked about it because Piastri unfortunately was another passenger in it because Daniel was hit into by Stroll and pushed further into Oscar, and then Oscar got some floor damage. Daniel also got some floor damage. Regarding Stroll's claims, I'll read out this to you. Regarding Stroll's claim that everyone in front of him suddenly braked, he says meaningfully, yes, but everyone else didn't crash into each other. That's sort of true. To be fair, Stroll, everyone did brake, but everyone saw that everyone was braking and also braked, and you didn't brake. So it was Stroll's fault. He did get a penalty. I'm sure Stroll is getting a lot of hate right now. I'm sure Stroll fans are going through it a bit. Obviously, if you're going to criticize driver, just stick to criticizing them for the one thing that they did and don't bring everything into it. I think obviously Stroll didn't crash on purpose. Stroll didn't ruin his own race on purpose, you know. And I did think it was Yuki actually he crashed into at first because we saw that Yuki was out. I thought they were showing a replay, but it was actually Yuki was out and now so is Daniel. So that was a bit of a shock. But yeah, Stroll, he needs to sort of get on top of his game again, unfortunately. He has had some really great moments in the past couple of years, but there's a lot of incidents, so he sort of needs to get on top of that, I'd say. I'm sure him and Daniel will maybe talk it out. They have quite a few common friends. I actually would love to be in the Chloe Stroll or Chloe James and Scotty James's house because obviously Scotty's best friends with Daniel and his wife, Chloe, is Stroll's sister. So yeah, I wonder if they were posting about it or anything. That would be funny though. So Daniel did try to go a couple more laps after that, but he was just getting eaten up and he had to retire because the floor damage was too extreme and he had too much understeer. He had so many problems. Oscar, on the other hand, with the floor damage that Oscar had, obviously Oscar couldn't really improve. He just had to defend sort of for the rest of the race, and he did. He did an incredible job at defending, which was nice to watch. It was a shame that he couldn't try to go up a few places, but his McLaren didn't seem to be on the pace really too much that weekend. So, but I would say a really good job from Oscar for doing that. It's obviously unfortunate for him to be a victim of that Stroll Ricciardo incident. And then Magnussen also got a penalty for what happened to Yuki. So tough day for Orby, especially after the high hopes for Daniel, since he had a good weekend. I haven't actually seen any post Yuki race interviews yet. I'll look at them after. So I can't really explain more from Yuki's side what happened. But Lando, obviously, so impressive all weekend, so consistent, kept not on pace with Max because no one can really keep on pace with Max, but the best of everyone apart from Max. He kept ahead of the other Red Bull, the same car as Max in Perez. I don't know why Perez couldn't get that P2 or hold on to it. Maybe Lando was just on pace, maybe Lando's just better at that track. Whatever it is, really impressive from Lando. Absolutely driver of the day. Russell, like I said, I couldn't tell you a thing about Russell's race, which is sometimes often a good sign because they're just having like a clean sort of race. The Ferraris as well, a clean race. They were making their moves, they were staying consistent, quite fast lap times all around, but Russell did have quite a quiet nice sort of race, all finishing the points at least. Lewis, P19 to P9, really impressive. Obviously, he shouldn't have qualified P19 in the first place. I'm guessing they figured out something with the setup of the car for today for Lewis. But obviously, some good overtakes made. Yeah, a good drive, a steady drive. I don't think he could have really done much more than P9 today, but quite impressive. And then Alonso had that little stumble, if you will, into the gravel, and he still overtook Lewis quite soon after that. So Alonso again, so impressive. It was a nice race to watch. It was just interesting all around. I really enjoyed the race. I was furious, to be honest, after Daniel and Yuki both DNF'd. Sargent got a penalty as well. 10 seconds, I think, for not following race instructors like rules under safety car. I don't know what he did actually there. Not sure what he did. Ocon P11. Well done, Esteban. One place away from points, though. Should be so frustrating considering points isn't like an easy option for them ever. But I think that's something to go on. The upgrades obviously did something if he's P11. And then the last note I have is about Joe getting emotional after, which just made the weekend for me to see how special that means to him. And I really hope he gets to drive in China again. I hope he has a good rest of the season. I don't think this Sauber lineup needs to change. I know that's probably quite an unpopular opinion. Bottas for sure has the car under control. They're quite similar to each other, but Bottas is that step ahead. Bottas makes less mistakes. He DNF'd today because of a car failure, not because of anything that he has done. The grass isn't always greener, you know? You can get new drivers in, but that's not going to change the car. I think if you focus on Stakes Sauber's races specifically, you can see that really the drivers aren't making too many mistakes. They have made mistakes, but it's not going too bad right now. So it would be interesting though. Obviously, I really want to see some more rookies in the Formula One, but right now there's just potentially not a place. Not a place. I think we will see some rookies in Formula One next year though. What else is there to talk about from the race? The cool down room was sort of funny. One of them made the reference to Stroll as Daniel Kvyat. I love that moment between Seb and Daniel. How do you pronounce his second name? Kvyat? 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 Don't know. Once again, can't pronounce nada. Yeah, that was quite funny. I love the cool down room. Max, they were all quite shocked by that Lance and Daniel crash, to be honest. One thing I forgot to discuss last week was fantasy Formula One, and I apologize deeply for that. I didn't do too well, so I'm not too bothered that I didn't discuss it. But this week, number one, first place, Arthur Wrigley. His team name is Bro. It's Verstappen. I think I can't really see what the rest of the team name is called. Can I go into it? And then second is Suki Yanoda, B team. And third is Osuki Yanoda. Very interesting. So I'm ninth right now. My B team is ninth. My B team is Charles, Oscar, George, Daniel, and Joe. Now I'm looking at my team, I'm like, I'm really playing this game wrong. And my main team is Max, Lance, Hulk. Oh my God, why is that my main team? You know what? I'm gonna stop with this fancy Formula One. I need to do some reconstruction with it. Not too much more going on in fancy Formula One. Will we get back to the riddle? Let's get back to the riddle of the week. So the answer was Rubens Barrichello. And let me tell you a bit about him. I also made a TikTok about him, and I realized after I had pronounced his name Rubens Barrichello because I made the mistake of not not looking up how to pronounce his name before I made a TikTok. So I deleted the TikTok because I was like, I'm not dealing with this hate for mispronunciation again. But anyway, Rubens Barrichello made his debut in Formula One at the age of 20 in 1993 after being signed by Eddie Jordan for Jordan. He didn't have a great first season because mainly of unreliability. It's always unreliability. 1994 was a more promising season. He got his first podium and pole position. Also, the year Ayrton Senna died. Brazilian driver, obviously that would have affected Rubens a lot as a Brazilian, which I said in the riddle. I mean, the death of Ayrton Senna devastated everyone in Formula One, everyone in motorsport. But it was also the time that Barrichello then would have had to step up sort of as the Brazilian driver in Formula One. Fun fact, Rubens was partner with Martin Brundle. If you watch Sky Sports, you know who that is. In 96, and then in 97 he joined Jackie Stewart's team, Stewart Grand Prix. But guess what happened then? More unreliability, wasn't too successful. At the end of 1999, Rubens then replaced Eddie Irvine and became teammates with Michael Schumacher. I've talked about Rubens Barrichello before, actually. I think in the most controversial moments of Formula One, if you want to watch that podcast back. Schumacher had a very interesting dynamic with Barrichello. They were rivals. They were sort of like friendly rivals in some ways. Like, don't get me wrong, Rubens had some great wins for himself, but Schumacher also did gift him sort of some wins. Schumacher would like win the season so early that he would have the ability to like gift Rubens win, like let Rubens pass. But Rubens obviously, would have been behind Schumacher. So they had a lot of respect. At least from the outside, it looks like they did have a lot of respect for each other. Rubens started 18th in Hockenheim in Germany, and he took his first win from 18th. So impressive. Obviously, a few things worked out in his favor. During that, there was a track invasion. Was that the Irish Priest track? No, it wasn't. No, that was a different one, I think. But yeah, the track invasion did bring out a safety car. Yeah, there was a bit of tension, obviously, between Barrichello and Schumacher. He was ordered to let Schumacher pass a few times for a win, but Schumacher did return the favor at some points as well. He drove for Honda alongside Jenson Button in 2006. Unfortunately, he did struggle to get on terms with his car, and 2008 was when he became the longest serving Formula One driver. Not anymore, but he was. He's now fourth, I think. That's what I said anyway, in the riddle, I think. So hopefully that's right. He drove for Braun after Honda was sold, same as Jenson. He did better there, but not as good as Jenson. Obviously, Jenson was a world champion with Braun. And 2010, he raced for Williams. This is insane to me. Alongside Nico Hülkenberg, 2010, in his rookie year. I wasn't watching in 2010. I didn't know Hülkenberg was in Formula One in 2010. When did the longest drivers on the grid, Perez, Bottas, Lewis, obviously I knew Lewis was. Daniel, I would have just assumed Daniel and Hülkenberg started at the same time. When did Daniel start in Formula One? Because he was in Red Bull in 2014. I guess Daniel probably started in 2010 as well, did he? 2010, 2011? Yeah, because sometimes when I'm talking about these past drivers, it's actually not that far away. Like for him to be partners with Nico Hülkenberg, who's still on the grid, was some interesting facts. He did lose his Williams seat though in the end to Bruno Senna. Yeah, obviously Rubens wasn't a world champion, but he is one of the ones considered like the best who doesn't have a world championship, I should say, along with Sterling Moss, I'd say, are the like some of the two drivers that are considered the best without that. Anyway, that was a lot of talking for today. I have exams for the next 2 weeks, college exams. So I'm hoping I get this one out on Monday, 9 a.m. as usual. That's the time it's usually out at. But when the races start to become later on a Sunday, I probably won't get time to film the podcast. So I'd say then I might have to move it to Tuesday, 9 a.m. I will always try to get it out on the Monday if I can. But Miami is next week. A lot to look forward to. I think that's all I have to talk about today. I could probably talk for more, and maybe I'll start doing like lives on TikTok or something so I can just keep talking forever, but I need to go study, unfortunately. Let me know your thoughts on the race. Thank you for listening to this episode, by the way. So thanks for watching. I'll see you for the Miami Grand Prix. Goodbye.